Yes, I'm Elizabeth, and I do work in the City of London, that place of tall glass buildings, finance, professional services, business, and results. And yes, I do work there, following a career of over 20 years as a professional dancer and producer, which is what you expected, right? Curious? I hope so, because that's what this talk is about. It's about curiosity, disruption, and exchange. It's about artists, it's about entrepreneurs, and it's about innovation. So, I've said that I'm an artist. Why is that important? Because I believe in artistry, in the inventive approach and discipline of creative practice. I've been fortunate to have a view into how the mind of an artist can work, how they sense and notice and observe, and then translate and amalgamate and create some form of expression or interpretation of what they take in. They ask questions, and they reassemble information in a way that can make a new kind of sense. And surrounding this, they have a rigorous practice and a discipline and a framework. Now, I personally believe that everyone is creative. All of you are creative. But what I've come to realize is that artists possess a certain craft, a craft of creativity. And it's that craft of creativity that can bring great benefit to any field of work in any sector. But why would someone from another sector, another field, be interested in what an artist has to offer? They have deadlines, they have things to get done. It's a tough sell. But let me also ask you this. How many organizations are looking for that next great idea? An edge. Or let's go back to that word, innovation. Well, I think an artist can help them get there. Let me tell you more. Business professionals, entrepreneurs, yes, they're busy, they achieve results. Aims and objectives, here to here. To me, it seems rather linear. I want to achieve that. These are my markers, these are my milestones, and that will be success. And to be fair, it often works. But a lot of things get done in the same way that they've been done before, and not always with innovation. So what if those business professionals thought differently? Those entrepreneurs did things differently? What if they invited a bit more creativity into their processes? What would happen then? And let's go back to those artists and those creatives. They're a business, and their product is their creative work, or a creative service, or themselves. And their focus is usually on activating their creative process to express their idea or someone else's. And to get to their result, it's a bit more winding. I want to make a piece that communicates X. I'm not sure exactly what form it's going to take. I don't know how many performers might be in it, but I need to get into the studio. I need to start to make it to figure it out. And a new piece of work is created. Emphasis is on the creative process, but not always with the most sustainable framework surrounding it or everything underpinning it to keep that creative practice sustainable long term. So what if those artists thought differently? Those creatives acted differently, valued other business opportunities around their creative practice? What would happen then? Now, I think it's important to say that I know many creative entrepreneurs, and I know many artists and creatives that are both strategic and business savvy. But when this is your profession, you have a sort of scaffolding around what you do. Sequences and next steps, discipline, and craft. So what if you exchange that craft with someone else? Someone you don't usually interact with, disrupting their way of working. They're disrupting your way of working. Changing your working habits, your methods, getting a new perspective. Sound good? Still curious? But how? Well, let me tell you how or rather, we did it. Through my work at Culture Mile in the City of London, I was introduced to Christine Nicholson, who volunteers with the Company of Entrepreneurs. She regularly works with business professionals. I regularly work with artists and creatives. And we spoke about a kind of kindred spirit that they share, but also about what they could do better, how they might support their practices better, whether that be a business practice or a creative practice. And I thought, yeah, this moment, right now, this partnership, I think true exchange can happen here. So we did an experiment of curiosity, disruption, and exchange, an experiment of co-mentoring between artists and creatives and business entrepreneurs. Now, we had no idea if anyone would want to join us in this experiment that we had just cooked up. Would artists and creatives or business entrepreneurs care what the other thought, give each other the time of day? We didn't know, but there was only one way to find out. And we didn't know if those artists would recognize what they had to bring to this. Not their specific creative work, but their process, their actual process of creativity. And we didn't know if those entrepreneurs would be open to disruption, particularly if they see themselves already as disruptors. So we had a lot to think through before we could get this started. Christine and I, we spoke about framework, and we spoke about expectation, and we spoke about language. She had a lot of assumptions about artists. I had a lot of assumptions about entrepreneurs. We were finding that stereotypes were cropping up even in the language of recruitment that we were using. Let me give you an example. Looking for business leaders. Artists and creatives are leaders too. Okay, another one. Wanted artists and creatives. But entrepreneurs are creative. So in fact, aren't all artists entrepreneurs and all entrepreneurs creatives? Yes, probably, but there's more to it. These professionals, they're experts in what they do. They bring insight and expertise and skill. They're talented, they're accomplished. They just use different methodologies and different approaches. Neither is more important or better than the other. They're equals. And we realized this was critical. These professionals needed to meet in a place of equal value. Not the poor, starving artist who needed business help, and not the wild entrepreneur who's desperate for that next creative idea. Equals. So how does that translate? They needed to be curious. Who are you? Why do you do what you do the way you do it? Let me into your process. Help me understand. I want to know. They needed to be open to disruption. Why do I do what I do the way that I do it? Help me see my patterns. Help me break them. Help me tread on different ground. And they needed to be open to exchange. In each relationship, they would be mentor and they would be mentee. That means they would be expert, they would be novice, they would be in a place of confidence, and they would be in a place of vulnerability. To recruit this first cohort, we reached out directly to the networks of Culture Miles artists and creatives, and then directly to the Freeman of the Company of Entrepreneurs. We looked for people who had an open mind, who might be looking to do something differently. We looked for people who wanted to innovate their work, their practice, themselves. And we looked for people who were interested to potentially meet someone who was quite different than they were. We kept it small. We invited expressions of interest. We matched purposes, what one person wanted to gain with what one person wanted to offer. Some wanted a fresh perspective. Another to improve the creative or the business practice around her creativity. And another wanted to break his writer's block. To be quite frank, they just wanted to connect with someone new because they felt like they were stuck. So we matched common interests where we thought that would complement, and we matched contrasting approaches where we thought, that could bring some challenge. And then these 5 artists and creatives and these 5 business entrepreneurs, they came together. In their first session, we spoke about what it means to be a good mentor, what it means to be a good mentee, and we offered them a loose framework. Over the next 3 months, they were going to meet 6 times, and half of those sessions they would be the mentor, and half of those sessions they would be the mentee. We made it clear there is no leader, there is no expert. You both are. You're both going to bring your insight and your expertise, and you're going to bring your curiosity and your appetite to change or develop. And we gave some guidelines around taking notes and timing and feedback to each other. Did they do it? Well, we know that some ripped up that rule book in the very first session, but it doesn't matter. We gave it to them. This was theirs. This was their time, their process, their exchange. And it was personal. I don't know everything that happened, but they do. And that's what matters. We were there supporting and holding around the edges. I know, however, that there was a lot of curiosity, a lot of disruption, and a lot of exchange. I know that the artists asked those entrepreneurs a lot of questions around the how and the why and the what they do, why they do what they do. They encouraged them to find more space between the actions and the milestones, to be more playful, dwell in their process a bit longer. Mark said, creativity helps business to move from the what to the why. I know that entrepreneurs encouraged a lot of future strategizing and bolder business models, and they asked pointed questions about the real and the perceived value of those creatives' works and services. G said, Barnaby helped me acknowledge the value of my time and adopt a more business-like mindset for my creative practice. And they all shared books and tools and resources and tasks, but these are things they might never have come across if they hadn't worked with someone who was doing something quite different than they were. Things began to change. Mindsets began to shift. Christine said, I completely changed the way that I approach things, not being tied so specifically to outcomes. Tessa asked me to think about the gaps in between. She increased her revenue by over £50,000 by applying a new and more creative process to an approach with a client directly after a mentoring session. She thought, I'll give this a go. The client loved it, and a big contract came through. Another entrepreneur published a children's book. Another entrepreneur, he successfully started to fundraise and build a new school. And the artists and the creatives, the tangible outcomes for them seem to be a bit longer term. But they're seeing themselves as creative thinkers, not just creative makers. Paula sums it up when she says, I think there is something really valuable about artists not just being creators of art, but being creative thinkers. And they're thinking and acting more strategically around the business of their creative practice. One artist told me that she was imagining £1,000,000 budgets and huge clients, and her mentor brought her back to now, and the short term and the sequences and next steps she needs to take to be really positioned for that opportunity when it comes. Another creative is thinking about a sort of value matrix. So she's reconsidering how she expresses the value that her music lessons for employees within organizations can bring to those organizations. Now, these are things that HR pays a hefty sum for when provided by someone else. Her music lessons are addressing employee well-being, talent attraction, talent retention, productivity, and they need to be valued as such. And that's it. All of these unlikely partners have continued meeting following those first 6 sessions. Imogen says, it's unlikely that our paths would ever have crossed had it not been for this program. And now they're champions and believers in what the other does. And they also challenge the status quo and continue to ask questions about those accepted personal norms. The entrepreneurs benefited from more creativity, and the artists and creatives benefited from a more entrepreneurial approach. Co-mentoring isn't simple. It's also not complicated. These artists and creatives, these business entrepreneurs, they were curious. They were open to disruption, and they committed to exchange. And it worked because that artist was a peer and a professional to that entrepreneur, and vice versa, a mentor and a mentee. Now, I hope to run this program again, but I'm still a bit nervous that it's going to be hard to find those business professionals and find those artists who want to take part, despite this great story I've just told you, with all of its evidence and impact. But they're so focused on what they do. Aren't we all so focused on what we do? And that's the problem. If you want to change the world, if you want to innovate, or you want to do things just that little bit better, you need to give this a go. That other person might just ask you a question that could change your future because they're curious. Or they might give you an exercise or a task that completely disrupts how you usually work. And boom, something unexpected happens. Or through this exchange, you dwell in your process that little bit longer to really land on the idea or the form or the model or something previously unimagined. You might even innovate. So, TEDx audience, I turn back to you now. Do you know an artist? Do you know an entrepreneur? Please, start a conversation. Or let me introduce you to someone. Break your habits, change your patterns, be curious, be disrupted, and exchange with someone who's different than you are. See what might happen. I just ask you one thing. Please do it together, and please let me know how it goes. Thank you.